No,
No.
Just came in about an hour ago.
you're kidding.
I wish I were kidding. I've heard it. You've heard about this in the news kind of things, but never happens to quote us. But they said there's been a problem of some sort, and it came out on the phone message. And they said until they give a further clarification, we should boil the water.
You're kidding. Oh my God.
John, how long ago was that you got the message?
Probably within the past hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Because we did not.
Oh yeah, I have a fax line, and they, any message I get on that I ignore. Except this time it kept ringing. I thought I better pick it up. And Lee at the same time was getting the message on her line, so on the house line. So yeah, boil the water. Interesting. I don't know why you didn't get it, but there it is, guys.
Maybe it's alphabetical order.
That often they can't do everybody at once. So maybe
No.
you'll get yours tomorrow, Barbara.
Well,
Anyway, there we are.
yeah.
One more thing last Thursday, my computer collapsed, so I had to get a new one.
Oh, God.
And that, changing computers is not the easiest thing in the world. Let me tell you, it really isn't. I've had a guru who transferred everything, but then all of a sudden nobody recognizes me. And they start asking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they don't recognize the computer. Yeah.
That's right. They start asking me security questions that they asked me, 15 years ago.
Yes. Yes, I know what you mean.
And you try to remember the answers if you can. Sometimes the answers change.
That's right. That's right. Where did you meet your wife?
John,
Which one?
I pulled up the precautionary boil water advisory.
Yeah.
So it says low pressure zone includes the entire city of Newport and the eastern point section of the town of Middletown.
Okay, guys, there you are. Aren't we lucky?
All right.
Yeah, just getting back on Zoom was the question. That took a while to reconnect.
But I bet you the new computer's a lot faster, right, John?
Yeah, a lot faster. You're right. Yeah. Hello, Ron.
Hi there, John. Bob just replied to my email about moving that item up on the agenda, so it sounds like that'll be fine.
Okay.
But we need to get Bob on here.
Good.
Hi, Leanna.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Lee.
Hi, Terry.
Hello, Barbara.
Oh, hi, Terry.
Hi, Terry.
Oh, Gary. Yeah, you're the new member, aren't you?
I'm the new liaison. Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. Join Barbara.
John, what is your telephone number, or do you want me to,
Excuse me.
will you give me your telephone number? Because I need to contact you.
This is live. This is live on
Oh,
YouTube.
okay. Then no, then I don't want your telephone number. Thank you.
No, I'll give you my number.
No.
John,
No.
John, this is
live.
live.
It's
This is
recording.
All right. Okay. All right.
I don't want to do that.
The whole world is out there.
I will send you an email.
All right. Very good.
And thank you for getting this recorded. The first meeting of MEDAC recorded
Yeah,
since we
right.
just took the vote. I'm very excited.
Yep. I'm not sure how it gets. I'm good at getting it up on YouTube, but then getting it linked to the website, the town's website, that's IT. I'm not sure how that happens.
Well,
Maybe it might be
Dennis-
automatic for all I know. I'm not sure how that works.
Dennis will miss you all, and he'll be really glad to be able to watch it because this time frame was really difficult for him.
Yeah,
Right.
it's hot. Good. How's school, Barbara?
Good. It's good. We're back already, and it's good. I'm totally online, so it's not an issue.
Oh, so you're not back in
Oh,
person?
no, good
Okay.
heavens, no.
Isn't Salve online?
I'm sorry.
Salve is online.
Oh, I think they are, but that's because they had a COVID issue.
Okay.
But where some of us are online and some of us are, you know,
In person.
yeah. And hybrid.
Yeah, right. Oh, shoots.
Are we waiting for Bob?
Yeah, he just emailed me. He hasn't obviously come in yet.
Okay.
Well, Tom, thank you for clarifying about the the ordinance, all in Middletown and Easton's Point. How nice.
All of Newport and
Oh,
Easton's Point.
Newport, I mean, and Easton's Point, whatever Easton's Point is. So
What's going on?
My daughter lives there. I'll have to make sure she knows.
all the water has to be boiled. All the drinking water.
In Easton's
Until-
Point?
Newport and Easton's Point. Is that what the memo said, Tom? The email says?
Well, I looked on the web.
Yeah.
I looked for Newport Water Department outage or something, and that's what came up. Do you want me to go back and do it again?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. Am I considered Easton's Point?
Terry, we were commenting on some of us got a call, some of us did not. So we're just saying that those that did not,
You must be
Oh,
good.
So I must not be. I'm in the poor section, so. Thank you, Ron.
Hello, Ron,
Oh.
can you hear me?
I got you, Bob. Yep.
Okay, I'm having problems getting into the video as such. I don't think I'm on the video.
Nope. You just need to turn on your camera and you should be all set.
Okay, let's see if that
Oh,
happens.
there you
Oh,
are.
yeah.
There you
There it
are.
is.
I don't know.
Come here, Robert, there you are.
Oh, yeah. Me and my caller are now
You still have the collar.
online. I had asked you to send me, but I did it in the last moment. I couldn't find the agenda for tonight, so I'll depend on you to walk us through the items, okay?
That's fine.
How are we doing on quorum?
We have a
all set?
quorum. We have a couple people that I'm not sure who they are. One phone number anyway that I'm not sure. If there's somebody online that's a member of the committee, could you please raise your hand and I can promote you and allow you to speak? If you're on the phone, *9 to raise your hand. Oh, yeah, there's somebody. Let's see who this is.
There's a phone.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh.
Hello?
Hello there, who's this?
Dave Lepore.
Oh, hi,
Ron?
Dave.
Oh, hi, Dave.
Am I lost?
Nope, you're here, Bob. I was trying to figure out who the phone call was, and
Yeah,
it's Dave Lepore. So
That's
he,
me. I don't know. I dialed in and they said you're muted and they didn't tell me how to unmute myself.
nope, you're in. The problem
Okay,
is,
that's
Dave,
good.
that when you call in, I don't get a name up on my screen, so I don't know who it is.
Okay,
That's the problem. But anyway, you're in.
okay, that's good.
So looking at the agenda, we do have a
Ron,
quorum.
am I getting through?
Yep,
Yes.
you're all set.
Your hand is up.
Yep. I'm gonna lower Bob's hand. Gonna lower Dave's hand. It's a lot of housekeeping here.
Ron, am I getting through?
Yes, Bob. Can you hear us?
What happened to Bob? Oh, there he is, but not, Your name, but not the video, Bob.
Can you hear us, Bob?
Uh,
Well, looks like we may have lost Bob.
You didn't cut him off when you put his hand down, right, Ron?
No, nope.
Oh, there you are.
There's
There
Bob.
you go. Hey, Bob.
Can you hear us, Bob? I don't think he can hear us.
Just to click.
Hey, Bob.
I think I better, I'll call him on the phone.
Oh, he's
Oh, yeah,
muted.
you're muted.
Oh, Bob, I'll call him.
Yeah, but he's muted. John, he's mute. Okay, there he
Call
is.
him on my regular cell phone.
This one again, huh?
Can you hear us, Bob?
I'll call him.
Yeah, you get up really quick, don't you? Huh? It's gonna make it even harder now. Every time I gotta make it harder and harder and harder. I know, I'm missing one. I don't know where the puzzle went.
I'll call him.
Oh, there it is, over there.
He was.
Okay.
Muted.
We usually go smoother than this, Terry. This is
Oh,
not,
dear.
This
I
is the
see your name when,
the first recorded one. This had to happen.
that had to happen, right?
I see your name, but your picture's not there anymore. The video's not on, and there was no sound.
Let me try to just call in, okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Bob's
Wait,
gonna call in.
All
I
right.
can hear you.
I'll look for his phone. I don't see George on. John, are you sure he was going to
Oh,
join?
he said he would be here. I gotta call George Durgan. Call George Durgan.
George Durgan, work.
If he wants to phone in, what's his phone?
He can get the link right on the website.
Hey, George, are you gonna log into the meeting?
Right now?
Yeah, the meeting's starting. Yeah, right now.
Bob, you're in, but you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, now I gotta make this one harder.
Well, we'll get you first on the agenda.
Hand over it? No? Yeah, that,
Pardon me?
all right.
Bob, if you can hear me, you need to unmute
Credentials.
yourself.
You're the,
Star six
but
on
you're
your
the
phone.
assessor. I mean, I want to make certain, I'm saying that,
what are the login credentials?
well, what are the login? What's the phone number? I mean,
It's on the, have them go to the website, the town website. It's right on the front page.
go to the town website. It's right on the front page.
On the front page, okay. I'm just running something for Sean right now. I'll be there in a second. Hold on.
Well,
Okay, well,
the rate we're
all
going,
right.
we're not, I don't know if we're gonna have a meeting.
Log in and, yeah, you do, finish Sean. He
I
takes.
can't
he's more
I can't
important
get Bob to
than
unmute
yes.
himself.
Does
Kim
Bob
is-
need the phone number?
No, he's in. He's on the line here, but he's muted. Bob, you
Oh,
need
he's
to,
gonna-
Bob, you need to
Star six.
six on your phone. Do star six to unmute.
Can you find what you're looking for, George?
Can you hear me now?
There he is. All
Oh,
right.
thanks.
Oh,
Sorry
all
about
we
the
want
confusion,
you to
but
do is to
this
be
is
there
not
when
my cup of
ask
tea.
questions. I'll say you reviewed this and it's workable.
All right, I'm going to mute John for a minute. So Bob, I think we're ready to go. Finally, the first item on the agenda is the minutes of the January 13th meeting.
Okay. Has everyone had an opportunity to review it? Any suggested changes? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to receive and approve the minutes.
Second,
So moved.
So it's a motion by Leanna, seconded by Barbara.
Okay. Do you want a roll call, Ron? I'm in favor.
Okay, Lee,
Here.
I, Tom, Barbara,
we
Yes.
did this with the town council.
yep. Terry. Well, you're probably gonna,
I don't think liaisons vote.
yeah,
uh,
no, you do. You're full
I
voting
do?
members of the committee for this committee,
Yes.
the way it's
Oh,
written
I
up.
didn't
Yep,
know that.
yep, you're official,
So am I part of the quorum then also?
right?
That's
Yep.
different than all the other liaisons?
It's an interesting setup, yes.
Okie dokie. Thanks for clarifying that. Oh, well, I'm not sure I can vote. I think I have to abstain because I wasn't there and
Sure,
if you don't mind,
Yeah.
technically.
yep.
Have we a completed vote, Ron?
I think so. I think we got
Okay.
everybody.
Now, you were speaking to Terry Flynn, and is she now an advisory or a ex officio member?
Yes, she was
to
appointed.
MEDAC?
She was appointed to replace Dennis. I didn't know you hadn't heard that. Dennis
No,
asked
I
to
hadn't
not-
heard that.
Yeah, Dennis asked to not be reappointed, and Terry is taking his place.
Okay, welcome aboard, Terry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
That's no problem. We'll miss Dennis, but I'm sure you'll be more than capable of replacing him. Just don't tell him I said that.
He passes his regrets. The timing of the meeting was very difficult with his work schedule, in case you didn't hear that part of the story. He didn't want to leave.
Yep, I understand. And we'll go forward. Okay. Next, are we going to honor John Bagwell's request to put the matter of the proposed tax adjustments, commercial rates, income producing real estate? Where they're going to move that up from an item to the beginning so George Durgan can be with us?
That's fine. You're the chairman if that's what you wish to
Yeah.
do.
Is George on?
He is on.
Yes, but he's muted. George, unmute.
Are you
Good.
there?
Yep,
Yep. Hey, George.
Okay.
Is
I'm here to
George
ask-
on board?
George is on. So John, it's
Okay.
your show. Take it away.
Could you just read the item on the agenda?
So the
That we're
agenda
moving up.
item, which is number 3 on the agenda, on the posted agenda, is update to the town council, update on town council consideration of potential amendments to the short-term rental ordinance. And under that item, John has submitted a couple of memos, which I sent out to everyone in advance of the meeting.
mhm.
So John, you're muted, but you can go ahead and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. First was a letter to all the, to MEDAC, reminding you of the challenge that we got from Bob Sylvia, Robert Sylvia, sorry, to find ways to develop streams of revenue that could benefit Middletown residents. And we had 3 items several months ago, and one was a proposal this is January 20, a year ago. One of them was a proposal to apply the commercial rate to income producing short-term rental residential properties, now taxed at the residential rate, but not including owner-occupied dwellings. The problem is that many people had was, what do they mean by owner-occupied dwellings? So I read finally got around to reading the short-term rental ordinance and found that ordinance really clears things.
Was not aware that I was a voting quorum member, so I'm going to recuse from this item number.
Okay. Anyway, the ordinance just uses the term for one who has a principal residence, which is very interesting because that really helped clear things up. So as a result, I gave some thought to an ordinance that would carry out the intent of the, our ordinance, our recommendation. And I attached that. And basically, the attached memo offers a proposed ordinance, which I believe reflects the intent of MEDAC's proposal, while addressing the concerns of many who spoke at the council meeting. And you'll all remember, at the last council meeting, there were many people who spoke in opposition to applying this tax. But these were people who would be excluded from the tax, whose properties would continue to be taxed at the residential rate. Because most of the people who spoke, basically, they occupied a dwelling that was their principal residence. And my proposal, I hate to call it my proposal because basically I did a lot of this work working with George, although, but it's basically, it's the proposal that I have on the second page. The second page is captioned, application of commercial rate to income producing residential properties, proposed ordinance. And what I'm proposing is, basically it's the same thing, frankly, that the MEDAC proposed, but I think a clarification. Tax at the commercial rate, a residential property which contains dwelling units. A dwelling unit is a full independent apartment, unlike a bedroom. So it contains dwelling units which have been or should be registered as a short-term rental, as defined in New York Middletown's ordinance, unless, and this is the key part, unless one or more of the dwelling units on the property is occupied by a Middletown resident for whom such dwelling unit is their principal residence. Observations. First, residential properties that are rented out as a short-term rental and not occupied as a principal residence are by their very nature income-producing properties. And I think it was the intent of MEDAC, these should be taxed at the commercial rate. Second observation, a property of which one maintains a dwelling unit as his or her principal residence will continue to be taxed at the residential rate. A short-term rental property will continue to be taxed at the residential rate if a Middletown resident occupies a dwelling unit on the property as his or her principal residence. And that means living there at least 6 months and a day. Now, but I think it's important to point out that this occupant need not be the owner, but may be a tenant who occupies a dwelling unit as his or her principal residence. This provision addresses the concerns of many Middletown residents whose residential property includes a dwelling unit occupied as a dwelling unit operated, as a short-term rental. Point 3, this proposal will raise additional real estate tax revenue for certain types of income-producing properties, and thereby subject to the commercial real estate tax rate. Meets one of the objective of Robert Sylvia's and Paul Rodriguez's 12/14/2020 memo to the town council colleagues. Quote, revenue would assist in financially supporting a healthy Homestead Act program. It would provide revenue to cover some of the additional financial burden associated with enforcement of town ordinances frequently violated by some short-term rentals. Point 4, a property would be subject in its entirety to either the commercial or residential rate. Once the town's tax roll is final, which is June, I understand, the tax calculation will continue for the entire calendar year. I think there was, some people had a problem saying, if I go away for 2 weeks in the summer, you plan to tax me for those 2 weeks? And I don't think there was any answer. Clearly under this, they will not be taxed. It's this building is their principal residence. And anyway, there will be no separating of a property into partially commercial or partially residential. And finally, by limiting to the point 5, limiting the tax adjustment to dwelling units covered by the short-term residential lease, a lease of 6 months or less, is consistent with the town's goal of encouraging families to become Middletown residents. Granted, a property leased for longer than 6 months, for example, a year, is an income-producing property. However, to impose the commercial real estate tax on this property could add to the housing costs of one who wants to make Middletown their home, but can't afford to buy a house. A person renting in Middletown, and this is and it's their principal residence, could be sitting on the town council now. So Middletown considers a resident anybody who lives here for 6 months in a day, whether you own the property or not. So frankly, I think this is a pretty simple ordinance, eliminating a lot of the complications that people were bringing up. It wasn't simple to think through, but I understood the goal was to permit people to address the concerns of many of those who are at this meeting, at the last council meeting. Now, Barbara, you're the council member representing this. What's your first reaction? Are you totally confused or do you follow me?
Oh, I follow you. I follow you. I have had concerns myself because it seemed, I did some work, I don't know, a week or 10 days ago, George knows about because he provided me with some information. What I did was I took all of the short-term rentals and I attached the assessed value, which meant going through all of the tax rolls and looking at the values of the property. And I'm looking at one of the pages right now. I saw property that was as at $219,000, and then on the same page I see property that's $3.9 million, almost $4 million. And it seems to me to treat those people equally is not fair either. So I'm looking for something that is fairer. Certainly, people that can afford houses that are $4 million shouldn't be complaining too much. But somebody who's making whose house is $219,000, I can understand that they're not making a lot of money, and to turn around and hit them hard is really not fair either.
Well, I have a question for George. George, what's the tax on a property assessed at roughly $219,000?
219 at a residential rate is about $3,000.
Okay, this would raise it to $4,000 under this proposal, Barbara. So my question is, my guess is they have it as a short-term rental. I have no idea what the house looks like, but my guess is pretty modest. My guess is they have it as a short-term rental, and they're probably making a lot of money that they wouldn't have made before. I don't know if this place might be somebody's principal residence. And if that's the case, it'll be taxed at the commercial rate. And one could tell, frankly, the ordinance says that if a property is your principal residence, you will pay $50 for the whole dwelling unit. And if it's not your principal residence, you'll pay by the bedroom. So if the people filing the application paid $50, it would be their principal residence, and they would not be taxed. So, and if it were not their principal residence, in other words, just an investment property, I have no problem raising their tax from $3,000 to $4,000. And under my proposal, because they've made a calculation. Now, obviously, when you raise their tax by $1,000, that's going to change some of the economics. Maybe they'll take it off the short-term rental rate. Maybe they'll sell it to somebody. But if it is their home, it will not be taxed at the commercial rate. And if they live there for 6 months and a day, they're not going to pay one nickel in taxes. And if they don't live there, I'm really not concerned about them. I think you're concerned. You're thinking about somebody who lives there and suddenly finds their taxes going up, even though they'd like to rent it out for a few weeks. Under my proposal, their taxes would not go up if this is their principal residence. Now, when you're looking at do you have the sheet in front of you by any chance, the registration form? You probably don't. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of paper. But if they're paying $50 for the whole dwelling unit, we'll assume the house is a single dwelling unit. If they're paying $50 for it, and that's it, that's their home. And they would not pay higher taxes. Do you understand? Does that kind of clarify anything or help you understand? I mean, I agree with you that if somebody's home and suddenly you're raising the taxes on them by $1,000, that's tough, even though they're renting it. But if there's a home under my proposal, they would not be taxed. And I'd be
So
happy.
John,
Go ahead.
so I can kind of process this. We're saying, or you're suggesting that as a policy, if somebody owns a home and is a resident of Middletown and lives there, there won't be a commercial tax rate imposed, even if that individual has qualified or registered for short-term B&B rentals.
That's correct. And it's not, they don't even have to own the home. They can rent a house. And if under their rental agreement with the owner, they're permitted to rent it out, we'll say for 2 weeks. They go away for a couple of weeks. And they want to have somebody come in and watch the property, but enjoy 2 weeks at Newport or Middletown, they would not be taxed. This would not apply to somebody where that dwelling unit is their principal residence. And frankly,
Be it
Barbara,
under a lease or be it under ownership, right?
pardon me, I'm sorry.
Be it as an owner or be it as a lessee under a lease.
That's correct.
As long as it's their principal place of
Principal.
residence.
That's correct. And I frankly think,
Because
Barbara, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, is there anybody else on the call here or on Zoom that has a comment or wants to make a contribution to John's proposal?
Leanna has her hand up.
Yeah, it's, I have a question. What happens if, like someone wants to rent out part of your home, if you have like a wing?
First of all, Leanne, I missed what you said. What did you say?
What happens when you have a wing in your home?
A wing?
Yeah, like a whole side that, you
Yep.
could rent out.
Yep.
But they want to do a business there.
What do you mean they want to do a business? What do you mean?
There's many homes here that have businesses within the house. And I think after you'll find more and more people doing their work at home.
Yep.
And businesses, instead of going out to rent, they'll just, stay
Oh,
here,
sure.
like an accountant,
Yeah, fine.
and just do their business there. Now, how would that affect it, John?
So,
I mean,
George,
is it
that's
the
why
same
George is
thing?
here. George, will you answer that question, please?
Well, you're right, Leanne. We do have a lot of single accountant types or salespeople that do operate out of the home. That does not necessarily change the primary use of the property, in my opinion. I think it's still their residence and that is the primary use, and if they use a spare room to do business, as long as you're not generating a lot of traffic or, storing a lot of equipment on the property. Like my daughter, she's telecommuting into Boston right now. Their office is closed because of the pandemic. And so she set up an office in her home. I think that would be a tough argument to make that property should be taxed at the commercial rate.
Okay.
So
I'm just
this is not-
thinking
go ahead.
of other ways that people are using their home now and in the future. And how would this that you're proposing, John, would affect that type of situation?
This is directed only at short-term rentals. Okay.
That could be a short-term rental. I could rent
Okay,
out
But if,
some rooms
if-
to an accountant.
just a minute,
Okay,
it's a short-term rental. This wing is a short-term rental, we'll say.
yes.
And if that building is your principal residence,
Right,
you'll be taxed at the residential rate because you occupy a dwelling unit as a principal residence. And when you go to file,
yes.
when you go to file your
Have to
registration,
claim it.
the ordinance says, if this is your principal residence, okay, you pay $50. And if it's not your principal residence, because you're an investor from New York, you'll pay $50 per bedroom. Okay, so we know from the registrations. As a matter of fact, George, I had asked George, and George had something to do other than produce stuff for MEDAC. And he has said that he hopes by the end of the week to have an estimate of how much money would be raised by this proposal. And frankly, I think it's pretty simple. Once you identify the fact that Middletown residents, whether they own the property or not, are not going to, and who live on the property are not going to be affected by this. And you say, what a relief. Wow. Okay, fine. Because those are the people who had legitimate concerns that the council heard from. And frankly, since I'm retired, I had nothing to do but think about problems. I can think if I were on the council, I'd throw my hands up. Let's go on new subject. I got a lot of people that don't want to be burned by this thing. But I think, frankly, I have worked out, not by myself, but with George's help, a proposal that would generate income while not angering our residents, that they would support. Because frankly, if there's any money you can raise from this business, from this thing, is going to be revenue that will help cover the cost of the town and reduce their tax rate. I mean, it's the low hanging fruit. I think, frankly, I'd like somebody to tear this thing apart. But frankly, I've talked to some people and they say, I think you got it. Now, Barbara, you came up with what you thought was inequitable. And what I'm saying is, if this property is owned by a resident, this $200,000 property, they're not going to be taxed. No tax, no increase in tax. And if it's owned by somebody from New York who's bought this thing just to make it a short-term rental, do you really care? That's my question. Do you really care? I mean, they're going to make money. They're going to make a calculation. I can make a few $1,000s during the summer. Yeah, okay, fine. I got to pay another $1,000 in taxes. I'll object. But let me tell you, before COVID, there were over 300 short-term rentals in Middletown. Now it's under 200. So when COVID releases its grip, the number of short-term rentals is going to increase dramatically. Anyway.
So John,
So
what,
our
what-
definition,
go ahead.
our
go ahead.
definition, Ron, of short-term rentals is anything that's rented for less than 6 months as we
That's-
speak.
That's the way it's currently written, yes.
Yeah, and we had also kicked around as a committee, a suggestion that short-term rentals be, different than less than 6
Yeah.
months. We were talking about less than 30 days, 40 days or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's already been sent to the town council. If the town council received that suggestion and just, I don't know how much discussion there was at the last meeting, but it's going to be coming back at Tuesday night's meeting for further discussion.
I'll be
Okay.
perfectly honest. I was promoting that short term, but you know something? Having a 6 months means that that's a broader net. And you're going to be able to, I guess the question is, why would we want to reduce that? Right now, 6 months gives the town control over a wider swath of houses. Now, the process is if the town council can adopt something, for example, with 6 months, and then there are two readings. And during each of these readings, people can come forward with changes and modifications to what the town has been reading and proposed. And those changes can, if the council adopts them, will be effective. so long as they're made before the close of business at the second reading. So frankly, I'm not terribly excited about that 28-day limit that I had pushed before, because I think a 6-month gives the town a much broader control. It's a pain in the neck for people who want to rent for 2 or 3 months, but let them have their input during the readings. Maybe the council will be convinced. Barbara, what do you think? Barbara?
Okay.
I think there are a lot more issues than what we've been discussing, and I think they'll probably come up at the meeting. I mean, one of the major factors of this whole situation has to do with the abuse of the neighborhoods by people who don't, the regulations need to be, we need better enforcement. We need a lot of other stuff. So this is not just one small thing, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, you apply something and everything's going to be beautiful. It's not that easy.
I agreed. This has nothing to do with the enforcement. Zero. People have said that this tax punishes people that are good. No, it doesn't. This will raise, and hopefully George will find it out by the end of the week, a significant amount of money, revenue, from people that are running these things as businesses. And this revenue can be used to help pay for more enforcement. This is not to be blended into the existing ordinance. This would be a separate ordinance, basically to tax real businesses. Somebody could be from Middletown or Providence or wherever, Boston, owns several properties. They don't live there. These are businesses.
John, would your concept apply to residences that are not registered for short-term and are not short-term rentals, but are renting for more than 6 months?
No, absolutely not. Bob Sylvia, for example, he recused himself. He called me once and he said, when we first proposed this, he said, look, I own a property, I rent it out for 12 months. That's a business. I think it should be taxed. I said, Bob, in theory, yeah, I agree. Conceptually, it's a business, you should be taxed. But the last point I'm making is, look, Middletown wants to encourage people to live here. And some people can't afford to buy, so they rent for 12 months. This is their home. They have the right to serve in the council. Why would we want to raise the money for them? The taxes on them or on the owner of that property, who will probably pass it on to the person who's renting at some point. What we want to do is simply to tax these rentals that are registered or should be registered as short-term rentals. Now it's 6 months or less. Council can make it reduce the term if they want to. And so the answer, Bob, is people who rent for more than 6 months will not be paying a higher tax.
Okay, so you're suggesting that there be an ordinance recommended, the concept of an ordinance recommended to the town council that as to any short-term rental, if the rental results from a residence where somebody lives there who is a resident, a full-time resident in Middletown, there won't be any tax except at a residential rate.
It's what I'm saying. The words that here were carefully chosen. Unless one or more of the dwelling units on the property is occupied by a Middletown resident for whom such dwelling unit is their principal residence. In other words, Barbara, there's nothing to do with this has nothing to do with the people abusing it. It's raising money from people that are running these things as businesses, period. And with that money, there'll be plenty of money. I think there'd be tens of thousands of dollars. This is not going to be nickels and dimes.
All right, let me ask this to George Durgan. If
Yeah.
that's the line in the sand, if you're registered as a short-term renter for a certain property, and someone comes in and registers and pays the $50 to register, and I guess more if there are extra rooms that they're renting out. But we got them on a list, and we know that the premises at 8 Circle Drive, for example, is registered as a short-term B&B. You can, at that point in time, figure out if it should be taxed on the residential rate or the commercial rate. And the only decision you have to make is whether that 8 Circle Drive is the home of a resident of Middletown. And if that's the case, they're not going to get taxed at the commercial rate. They'll get taxed at the residential rate, but they'll be allowed to operate as a B&B or a short-term rental.
I would be able to, as much as we determine who gets the senior exemption or a veterans exemption, it's just another layer of, verification that somebody is using that property as their primary residence. As I understand the proposal, that's what we would need to verify, that somebody is there permanently, registers their car there, provides utility bills, or registered to vote from that location. There's a variety of other things we can, and they would have to swear to it. They'd have to sign a notarized statement.
Yeah, wouldn't that be appropriate to have on the application form when you come in to register as a short-term rental? At that point, you'd want to know whether or not the owner of the property is a resident or not. You could ask those questions and they could sign it on the road, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Leah, yes.
Yeah.
Now, what happens, going to Barbara's concern, which I agree with, I think a large measure of the issues that have been raised over this before the council really deals with the enforcement of a short-term rental ordinance, no matter what that ordinance provides. So you have 200 and some odd people who've registered as short-term rentals. How about the individual that is doing short-term rentals? You won't know about it, I guess, unless someone points a finger at them or calls somebody in the zoning office, hopefully, that will be responsible for the monitoring of these things. But what happens if somebody doesn't register? George can't apply a commercial rate to them.
There would be, I would hope that there'd be a penalty imposed as part of the ordinance.
Good point. Good point. So we would be focusing on having George adjust the tax rate to the commercial rate for any of those properties that are registered as short-term rentals where no one there is a resident.
Yes.
Okay. But that doesn't avoid the need to really beef up the enforcement of the short-term rental ordinance.
No, but guess what? It provides money. If they're going to hire somebody, it will. This is going to provide, I think, tens of thousands of dollars a year in additional revenue. My guess, more than enough to cover the cost of somebody to enforce it. And this is seen as a different ordinance than the short-term rental ordinance.
George, what kind of differential is there between, for a house that's worth $400,000 to make it even? If it is taxed at the residential rate, which is what and how much, as opposed to the commercial rate, which is what and how much? What's the gain to the town on a $400,000?
On a $400,000 house, the tax is $5,500.
Mm-hmm.
Increase it by 33%.
That's residential, right?
That's at the residential rate. At the commercial rate, it's $7,284.
What was it at the residential rate, George?
$5,500.
It's going to be. The
So-
commercial rate under the present structure is 33% above the residential rate.
Right.
That's
So on a $400,000 house, the increased tax would be $1,784.
Okay, and if you were to go through and find out, like the $4 million house, there would be a significant impact because the
Yeah.
residential rate is how much, George? 16 what?
No, the residential rate is 13.76.
And the commercial?
18.21.
So there's a $4 plus increase per thousand.
Yeah.
It's commercial. Okay, so there is a significant difference, which would make a big difference. Let's just play with the example that was raised by Barbara, $4 million house as opposed to a $400,000 house. What would the numbers be there?
Well, for the $4 million house, it would be a let's see,
$17,000 increase.
$17,840 versus $1,700. So you're looking at about $15,000 difference.
Okay, so that guy who's sitting in New York, not living in that house in Middletown and not a resident, he's got to make a decision whether or not another $17,000 in taxes is going to be covered or coverable by the rentals that he has. So it's a decent business operation for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have questions of George on this issue? I'm not too sure what MEDAC wants to do, but we're at least discussing this at this level.
Leanna has a question.
Yeah, George, does the town tax people who do Airbnb, say like on weekends, every weekend? Would the owner pay taxes, local taxes? I know they pay state taxes,
Right.
but do they
No.
pay local?
They are taxed on the primary use of the property. So if you're single family, you have a single family dwelling and you rent out, I'll backtrack, anything 1 to 5 dwelling units is considered a residential property. So that we tax those properties at the residential rate. 6 units and above, we tax at the commercial rate, regardless of the tenancy, regardless of how long people use those dwelling units.
Okay.
Those are multifamily.
Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5 family properties. I mean, they can rent them out any way they see fit. And then there is the town does not generate additional revenue. They generate their money based on the residential rate.
Okay. My question came from short-term, long-term, because if I was doing this short-term, I would say, well, if I do it long-term, I could not, pay taxes.
You're not going to pay any tax if you're living there and that's your
Right.
home. You're not going to pay any taxes. You're not going to pay an increased commercial. You're not going to pay an increased real estate tax.
Well, John, because that's what I was thinking about between your definition of short-term and long-term.
If you're leasing the thing, if you
It
have
doesn't
somebody
make
living
any
in that
difference.
wing for a year,
Okay.
this would not affect it.
Thank you.
Yeah, what I think John is suggesting is if you own a home, but you want to rent out a portion of the house because it's physically possible to do that, if you rent it out for less than 6 months, and you're a resident, there's no increase in the tax. And if you rent it out for more than 6 months, there's no increase because you're not a short-term renter.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
The issue of the differential comes when the unit or units that are in question and they're short-term, if nobody is living there as a full-time resident, that gets taxed on the commercial rates.
Right.
Bob, Tom has his hand up.
Yeah, so I think maybe we should do is just move the recommendation to the council really without a vote. Just if the council asks for good ideas, here's a good idea. Because there's might be some unintended consequences, and I'm not sure if this is good or bad. People across the street from me, the house is vacant. The owners are in Massachusetts. They use it as a summer home for their family, and then maybe 4 or 5 times a year, they rent it out for primarily wedding parties. Wedding parties come to Newport, and then they, occupy the house. So in their case, my taxes are $8,000. Theirs would be about the same. So their taxes would go from $8,000 a year to $11,000 a year. Now, I don't know if that would be something that would prevent somebody like that from buying that house or not, but I don't know. So I really don't know how this will work out. But it's a good idea. I mean, you got to do something. You got to try something. So my feeling is sent to the council, but not with any kind of MEDAC yay or nay.
Well, Tom, there is no perfect solution to this. Let me tell you, there is, and that, I wish there were. There is no perfect, there always going to be. You can follow down different lines as you just done that. And you'd say, well, that doesn't really is not fair. But if you're going, if to accomplish the major objective, the town council, in its wisdom, is going to have 2 readings, and there might be ways to tweak this thing. I don't know. I have no idea. But I don't think
John Bagwell, if I might, I'm looking at my watch here, and it's 5:23 already. And Ron's got you got a planning board meeting tonight, don't you, Ron?
Right, yeah, so I'm gonna have to check out of this meeting in about 5 or 10 minutes. Yep.
Okay, so at this point, John, you've got your concept and your suggestion to the council, and it's going to be on the docket, and the council can consider it, right?
No, actually, I'm going to send this. I sent in a letter at the last council meeting, and my guess was that nobody read it.
I think it's on the docket.
Well, I can tell you what's on the docket, and there's another thing that bothers me. It said, we'd like to start conversations. This is from Robert and to Paul. It says, we'd like to start conversations regarding any potential changes to our current property taxing methodology for residential and commercial properties. This evening, we had open discussion, receiving input from the council and taxpayers. It's a wide open discussion. They've gone from just the last meeting, they said they were at the end of this meeting, they were to come up either with the decision to kill the whole idea or to develop a proposal and then have 2 readings afterwards. And I'm concerned. I mean, I asked George if he would put his primature on this thing. And he said, John, I'm not a policy person. I carry out policy. I don't develop policy. That's
all right. Well,
a good answer.
My suggestion under the difficult conditions of trying to run meetings by Zoom and whatnot, and getting into a subject matter that's obviously somewhat difficult to address quickly. Why don't I suggest this? John, you go forward and you make your recommendations and your suggestions to the town council at the town council meeting. Let's see what the council comes up with and what it regurgitates and discusses. Nobody knows what the result of the so-called hearing will be. And I don't think we're in a position as a advisory committee to come up with something official and send it to the council. But I would say that anyone on MEDAC who feels that he or she wants to attend the Zoom meeting with the council and proffer their own particular attitude and thoughts should be able to do so. But I don't think we're in a position to send something to the council saying MEDAC recommends thus and so.
Well, I agree, because as one thinks about it, I mean, so I have no problem with that. But now, Barbara,
Okay.
if you think this is a worth discussion, I would like somehow to, maybe I'll call you in a subsequent after this meeting, Barbara, if I might, to find out. I wouldn't ask you to sponsor this thing, but you've heard it. You've
Well, the other thing, John, is George, who was not at the last council meeting, will of course be in attendance for this one. So he knows and he's heard some of our thoughts and concerns, and I'm sure he could weave those into any response or remark that he might make, remarks that he might make to the council. All right. But Ron, let's take a look at the agenda. We're at 5:30 almost, another 4 minutes. What are the items there that should be discussed before we continue everything to next month?
I think the only couple of things I'll mention, and I sent out some emails on this, is first regarding the career education, that we've been trying to get that special meeting scheduled. We finally did find a date that seemed to work for everybody, and that will be on the 22nd of this month, which is a Monday afternoon. So it'll be at 4:30 on the 22nd. I've already sent out the agenda to everybody, so you have the Zoom link for that. If you didn't get it, or if you need it again, just let me know.
Yeah, in that regard, I did get a call this afternoon from David Lepore, who indicated that he had continued for 2 times a dentist appointment, not eye doctor, I think it is. And unfortunately, it's on for the 22nd, and he can't continue it again, so he's not going to be available. I
Bob?
just wanted to pass that on.
Hey, Bob?
Yeah. Yes, is it David?
Yeah, it's David. I might try to change that appointment. I sent an email to Ron saying, I'll try to do my best to change that appointment.
Okay. All right.
So
Great.
that's all set. And as far as I know, Rosemary Krieger will be joining us, as well as Sarah Burke from Connect Greater Newport, who she was at a previous meeting of ours. And then the only other thing I'll mention, and I sent this out today to you all, is that on Tuesday night, the council will also be discussing West Main Coddington redevelopment and the request for information that went out and got limited response. So we will have, the council will have some level of discussion on Tuesday night regarding West Main Coddington. And obviously, if you're interested to see how that goes, or if you wish to speak on it, you would just let the town clerk know in advance that you'd like to speak on that item on the agenda.
And we had previously recommended, and the council in fact did, send out requests for information.
Right. Yeah. So that's what's on the docket.
And we didn't get much of a response, right?
Exactly. And that's why it's on the docket. We got one response, at least in part due to COVID, we believe, the lack of interest. And in the memo I sent to Sean, which is what's actually on the docket, I suggest that the council may wish to ask us to re-advertise that request for information to see if we get any more interest. The goal of that.
And that's the council meeting for when?
Tuesday, the next meeting, Tuesday night.
Okay.
Terry Flynn has her hand up, Bob.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Oh,
I can't see anything, by the way.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and your interpreter, Ron Walensky.
Right.
Was there not a public hearing on February 26th, 7th, 8th last year on the property to get public input? That I'm not sure if it was recorded or not.
Yeah.
I think it may have been, actually.
Yeah, there
That
was.
would be a good thing to also put on the list of things to review.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, I believe my memory leads me to conclude that there was, but I'm not too sure whether anything productive resulted from that or any action thereafter by the council.
No action. I think a lot of input, though. I think the room was pretty filled, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was a good meeting. I don't know that there were any sort of out of the box ideas that came out of the meeting. It was a lot of, I think, justifying what we had discussed earlier, which was the mixed use development concept that seemed to have some support. But again, the goal of the RFI was to get some real world input from developers who may be interested in the property to tell the town council what they feel is actually viable for the future of that property. And with only one response, again, it may be appropriate to try to reach out to developers again with the idea of getting as much input from the, the boots on the ground, so to speak, so that the council can make a good decision as to how to proceed.
Right.
We have
So the next meeting is on with Rosemary Krager and Company. That's on for the 22nd of February. And the next regularly scheduled meeting for us will be March what?
10th,
10th.
March 10th, right?
Okay. So this agenda that might not have been addressed, those items will be over at least to March 10th as well.
Right.
Okay. Anything else from the committee before we adjourn? Okay. Well, we certainly got involved with an excellent discussion, and I know I'll try to be involved with the town council meeting to at least monitor what is being discussed. And I agree with some of the speakers today. This is not an easy slam dunk type of solution. I mean, it also incorporates enforcement. And right now, you have one zoning officer, Chris Costa, and Celeste Logathetz, who had been for years in the zoning office. She retired, but I spoke with Chris this morning, and he did indicate that he does have an assistant. I forget what her name was, Madeline or something like that. I haven't met her yet.
Angela.
So Angela, thank you. Yeah. And they are just overwhelmed with zoning matters. The last meeting that the zoning board had by Zoom, it was technically deficient. The solicitors couldn't get involved. Nobody else could really stay on board. I managed, but I couldn't get the video, so they canceled everything. So all those cases have been put over, and I think they're going to try to have a special meeting on the 9th of March. But in any event, the town's going to have to take some steps on enforcement of Airbnbs and short-term rentals, and it's going to have to do so by bringing in other people, full-time staff. But that's what Sean Brown and the council to wrestle with. Any other final questions or comments before I call for an adjournment? Okay, is there someone who will make a motion to adjourn?
I
So
move.
moved.
Second,
And a second? Okay, I think it's unanimous on that one, so we won't have a roll call, okay? Thanks, everybody, for
Yeah,
joining
stay
in.
safe.
And yep,
Thank you for all the
and,
time that you
welcome
gave me.
aboard, Terry.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a great week, everyone.